In 1271, a 17-year-old Venetian made a decision that would alter the course of human history. Marco Polo stepped into the unknown, not for conquest, not for glory, but to follow a route so dangerous that most who attempted it never returned. 24 years, 12,000 miles from Mediterranean shores to the heart of the Mongol Empire. But here's what historians recently discovered. The places Marco described with such wonder, the cities that seem too magnificent to believe, the landscapes his contemporaries dismissed as fantasy, they're real, and many remain virtually unchanged. Researchers have traced his exact route, archaeologists have confirmed his descriptions, and today's travelers report the same sense of awe that Marco felt 750 years ago. This is the journey that proved the medieval world was far larger and more connected than anyone imagined. From Venice's canals to China's forbidden city, from Persian gardens to mountain passes that touch the sky. These are the most beautiful places along Marco Polo's legendary route, and they're waiting to be discovered all over again. Venice in the 13th century wasn't just a city, it was medieval Europe's bridge to the east. Built impossibly on wooden pilings driven into a lagoon, the city seemed to float between two worlds, Western Christianity behind it, the Byzantine East ahead. Every surface of St. Mark's Basilica tells the story. Byzantine mosaics shimmer with techniques borrowed from Constantinople, marble columns stolen from ancient temples. Even the building itself leans toward the east. The Venetians didn't just admire Eastern culture, they claimed it, absorbed it, made it their own. The Rialto. For centuries, this was where Eastern goods first touched European soil, spices that arrived by camel from Persia, silks that traveled thousands of miles from China, frankincense from Arabia, precious stones from India. Venetian merchants grew wealthy on goods they'd never seen being made. They controlled the trade routes, but had never walked them. The Polo family was different. Niccolò and Maffeo weren't content with second-hand knowledge. They'd already made the journey once, traveling further than any European merchant before them. They'd met Kublai Khan himself, the most powerful ruler on earth. They'd seen the Mongol Empire at its height, and they'd returned with stories that seemed impossible. Now in 1271, they prepared to go back, this time bringing 17-year-old Marco. Somewhere in Venice's stone courtyards, between merchant houses and canal-side warehouses, the family made their decision. The teenager would see what no Western European his age had witnessed. The boy who departed from these canals would return as a man who'd seen empires his neighbors couldn't imagine. But Venice was merely the prologue. The real story begins where Europe ends, and the mysteries of the East begin. Marco's first destination wasn't glamorous. It was a war zone. Acre in 1271 was Christianity's last major foothold in the Holy Land. Massive fortress walls met the Mediterranean, waves crashing against stones that had witnessed decades of siege and battle. Behind them, Crusader kingdoms were slowly crumbling. The dream of a permanent Christian presence in the Levant was dying, but the city still stood, still fought, still served as the gateway between worlds. The Polos arrived with a mission beyond commerce. Pope Gregory X had given them letters for Kublai Khan, a diplomatic gesture attempting to bridge the two most powerful empires on earth, Christianity reaching toward the Mongol world. The letters carried weight. Authority, the blessing of the highest power in Western Christianity. From Acre they traveled inland to Jerusalem, not as pilgrims seeking salvation, but as merchants with papal credentials. Jerusalem in 1271 was a city where three faiths converged on ancient stones: Christians, Muslims, and Jews, sharing sacred ground in uneasy coexistence: the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Dome of the Rock, the Western Wall, each marking territory, each claiming divine connection. For young Marco, this was his first taste of genuine cultural complexity. Venice had Eastern influences, but Jerusalem was different. Here, different civilizations didn't just trade goods, they overlapped, competed, negotiated daily existence in narrow streets where every corner held centuries of conflicting history. Local historians note that Marco's route through the Levant followed ancient trade paths, the same roads that brought frankincense and myrrh to Roman markets, paths worn smooth by thousands of years of caravans moving between Mediterranean ports and the interior. But these holy cities were just the beginning. Beyond these hills lay Persia, and in Persia, a city so beautiful it would redefine everything Marco thought civilization could achieve. Marco Polo called Isfahan one of the most beautiful cities in the world. 750 years later, it's hard to disagree. Naqsh-e-Jahan Square stretches 500 meters, perfect symmetry in every direction. Architects designed it as a mirror of heaven on earth. The Mongols who controlled Persia in Marco's time preserved this magnificence, recognizing beauty when they conquered it. Unlike other conquerors who destroyed, the Mongols understood that some things were too precious to ruin. The Sheikh Lotfolla Mosque wasn't built when Marco passed through, but the techniques were ancient even then. Turquoise tiles arranged in kaleidoscope patterns, domes that seemed to float without visible support, light and mathematics transforming clay into something divine. Persian craftsmen had perfected these methods over centuries, creating architecture that functioned as both art and prayer. Persian gardens follow a design older than Islam itself. 4 rivers flowing from a central point, the earthly echo of paradise described in ancient texts. Marco wrote extensively about these gardens, about water systems that made deserts bloom, about the way Persians turned harsh landscapes into places of impossible beauty through nothing but engineering genius and patience. The bridges of Isfahan became more than crossings. They were meeting places where East and West traded more than goods, ideas, stories, technologies, merchants from China, traders from India, Europeans seeking fortune, all converging on these elegant stone arches reflected in the Xanadu River. For a young Venetian merchant's son, Isfahan was revelation. This was the first glimpse of empires that rivaled anything Europe could imagine. Cities built not just for commerce or defense, but for beauty itself. Architecture that proved civilization could mean more than survival. But Isfahan's beauty was preparation for what came next. Beyond these gardens and mosques lay mountains so high that Marco claimed fire wouldn't burn properly, where the air itself becomes thin and precious. The Pamir Mountains are Earth's second highest mountain range. Marco called it the roof of the world. He wasn't exaggerating. The Wakhan Corridor. Even today, it's one of the planet's most remote inhabited places. Caravanserais still stand where Marco's caravan would have rested. Stone walls providing shelter from winds that sweep down from peaks reaching 7,000 meters. These structures were built to save lives. Without them, crossing the Pamir meant almost certain death. Modern mountaineers confirm Marco's strangest observation. At these altitudes, food takes hours to cook. The air pressure drops so low that water boils before it can properly heat a meal. Marco noted this phenomenon in 1272. Scientists didn't understand why until centuries later, but he recorded it with the precision of someone who'd watched his dinner refuse to cook properly night after night. The routes through these mountains demand everything. Ancient travelers reported journeys taking months, not because of distance, but because the mountains themselves fight back, avalanches that erase entire caravans, sudden storms dropping temperatures 40 degrees in an hour, air so thin that every step becomes a negotiation with your lungs, your body warning you that humans weren't meant to be this high. Yet there's beauty here that exists nowhere else on Earth. Lakes so blue they seem artificial. Valleys where time moves differently. Where nomadic herders live exactly as their ancestors did when Marco passed through. The silence at these altitudes is absolute. No birds, no insects. Just wind and stone and sky. But mountains can't last forever. Eventually, every peak gives way to valleys, and beyond the Pamir, waiting like a warning, stretches one of Earth's most feared landscapes, the desert that earned its name honestly, the desert of death. Taklamakan. In the local dialect, it means you go in, you don't come out. The Taklamakan Desert is China's largest, over 300,000 square kilometers of shifting sands, temperatures that swing from scorching days to freezing nights. Marco's caravan would have taken a month to cross it, following ancient routes marked by the bones of those who miscalculated. But the desert guards treasures. Kashgar's Sunday market has operated in essentially the same form for over 2,000 years. Merchants sell the same goods Marco would have seen. Carpets, spices, jade. The chaos and energy of the Silk Road compressed into one massive bazaar. The flaming mountains burn without fire. Red sandstone cliffs that glow like embers in the sunset. Chinese legends claim these mountains were formed when the Monkey King battled demons. Marco described them with the precision of a man who'd witnessed something his European readers wouldn't believe. Hidden in canyon walls, Buddhist monks carved sanctuaries, caves filled with murals depicting the Silk Road's spiritual journey alongside its commercial one. Travelers prayed here before entering the desert, their offerings still visible on ancient altars. And then, like miracles, the oases appear. Towns built around underground water systems, places where multiple cultures merged, Persian traders, Chinese administrators, Mongol soldiers, all converging where water made life possible. But these desert towns were only whispers of what waited beyond, the true edge of Chinese civilization, a gateway guarded by caves that hold 1,000 years of secrets. Dunhuang marks where the desert ends and China begins, and it's been marking that boundary for over 1,700 years. The Mogao Caves, 492 caves carved into cliff faces, 1,000 years of Buddhist art layered into stone. Marco almost certainly stopped here. Travelers on the Silk Road considered these caves both spiritual preparation and practical landmark, the last stop before entering Chinese civilization proper. The murals reveal everything. Merchants in Persian dress, camels loaded with goods, musical instruments from India. The caves became a visual encyclopedia of Silk Road culture. Archaeologists study these paintings to understand exactly what Marco witnessed. The Singing Sands. Local legends claim these dunes echo with the voices of lost travelers. Scientists explain it as sand grains creating acoustic resonance. Either way, the sound is haunting, a low hum that pulses across the desert at sunset. Crescent Lake defies logic, a spring-fed lake surviving in the middle of massive sand dunes. It should have been buried centuries ago. Yet it persists. Marco mentioned it as proof that even in harshness, beauty finds a way. Beyond Dunhuang, the Great Wall begins to appear, watchtowers marking China's edge. For Marco, passing through this gate meant entering the realm of Kublai Khan, the empire that would consume the next 17 years of his life. And Khan's empire started not in cities, but in endless grass, in a summer palace so legendary that the English language created a new word just to describe it: Xanadu. Xanadu was real. The ruins of Xanadu still mark Inner Mongolia's grasslands. Marble foundations outline where palace walls once stood, the city that inspired Coleridge's famous poem, the pleasure dome where Kublai Khan escaped Beijing's summer heat. For centuries, historians debated whether Marco's descriptions were fantasy. Then archaeologists found it exactly where he said it would be. But Xanadu was more than a palace. It was a statement. Mongol power fused with Chinese civilization. Khan could have ruled from Beijing year-round. Instead, he returned to the grasslands each summer, maintaining connection to the nomadic roots that built his empire, reminding himself and his court that Mongol strength came from the steppes, not from city walls. Archaeologists uncovered something unexpected in the ruins: an astronomical observatory, Chinese and Persian astronomers working together under Mongol patronage. Here, at what Europeans considered the edge of civilization, some of history's most advanced scientific collaboration occurred. Marco noted the Khan's obsession with astronomy, his need to understand the heavens while ruling the earth. The palace design merged traditions in ways that shouldn't have worked but did. Chinese roof tiles, Mongol structural layouts, Persian decorative elements. Walking through Xanadu meant experiencing the entire Silk Road compressed into architecture. Every culture Khan conquered, leaving its mark, creating something new from collision. Modern visitors report the same sense of vastness Marco described. Horizons that stretch beyond sight, Skies so large they curve, the physical sensation of standing at the center of something immense, the grasslands where empires were born. But Xanadu was merely Khan's retreat. His true seat of power waited in the south, a city Marco called the greatest in the world, the capital of the largest empire in human history, the city that would become Beijing. When Marco Polo entered Khan Balik in 1275, he entered the largest city on earth. Today we call it Beijing. The Forbidden City sits on the foundations of Kublai Khan's palace. The Yuan dynasty that Khan established designed these layouts. 9,000 rooms, courtyards that could hold tens of thousands, architecture meant to physically manifest imperial power. The Temple of Heaven reveals cosmic geometry, circular heaven meeting square earth. Emperors performed rituals here to maintain harmony between celestial and terrestrial realms. Marco described similar ceremonies in Khan's court. Heaven wasn't just spiritual concept, but mathematical relationship requiring precise architectural expression. Hidden in hutongs, medieval street patterns survive. These narrow alleyways follow the same grid system Khan's planners established. Researchers mapping old Beijing discovered that modern ring roads trace the ancient city walls Marco walked along 750 years ago. Local historians note that Beijing became a crossroads. Persian merchants, Russian traders, Korean diplomats. Marco was just one foreigner among thousands drawn to Khan's capital, the city that proved empires could span continents. But Khan's empire wasn't just northern China. It stretched into regions even the Chinese emperors before him struggled to control. Southwest into mountains where dozens of cultures merged, where Marco served not just as visitor, but as Khan's official ambassador. Beyond Beijing's walls lay China's most diverse province, a land of vertical geography and horizontal cultures, where Tibet meets Southeast Asia, where Marco discovered what he considered the most beautiful landscape in the empire. Marco Polo served Kublai Khan as an official for 17 years. One assignment took him to China's southwestern frontier. He called it the most remarkable place in the empire. Lijiang preserves what Marco witnessed: stone streets, polished smooth by centuries, water channels flowing through the town center, Naxi architecture blending Chinese, Tibetan and local traditions. UNESCO researchers confirmed that Lijiang's layout remains virtually unchanged since the Yuan dynasty. Tiger Leaping Gorge cuts 3,000 meters deep, one of Earth's deepest canyons. Legend claims a tiger once leaped across the river at its narrowest point. More likely, the legend warns travelers about the gorge's terrifying power. Marco's writings describe similar vertical landscapes that made lowland Chinese nervous. The rice terraces of Yunnan demonstrate a different kind of engineering. Farmers carved these steps into mountains over 1,000 years ago. Each terrace a small miracle of water management. During Marco's service, Khan's administrators studied these techniques, trying to replicate them across the empire. Yunnan remains China's most ethnically diverse province, 25 different recognized ethnic groups, each with distinct languages, customs, and traditions. This was the frontier where Chinese civilization met Southeast Asian kingdoms, where mountains created isolated valleys, each developing its own culture. Anthropologists note that Yunnan represented everything the Mongol Empire achieved: different peoples coexisting under one administrative system, trade flowing across traditional boundaries, innovation emerging from cultural collision. But Marco's longest posting waited further east, the city that made him question everything he thought he knew about civilization, the place he declared superior even to Venice, even to Khan's capital, the city built on water, Hangzhou. After 20 years traveling the Mongol Empire, Marco Polo reached a city that stopped him completely. Hangzhou. He called it the finest and most splendid city in the world. Westlake has inspired poets for over 1,000 years. Marco arrived when this city was still recovering from the Mongol conquest, yet even diminished. The city dazzled him. Causeways and islands stretched across the water, pagodas marking spiritual geography, nature and civilization achieving perfect balance. The hills surrounding this city produce some of China's finest tea, Longjing tea, cultivated using methods older than Marco's visit. He witnessed tea culture at its height, not just beverage, but ceremony, philosophy expressed through careful preparation. Pagodas mark the city's history in vertical increments, each built to anchor spiritual energy at precise points. To modern engineers, they're earthquake-resistant marvels, flexible wooden joints, allowing structures to sway without collapsing, technology that seemed impossible to Marco's European understanding. The Grand Canal connects Hangzhou to Beijing, over 1,700 kilometers of engineered waterway, the longest canal system ever constructed. Marco traveled it repeatedly during his years of service to Khan. It reminded him of Venice, two cities built on water, eastern and western mirrors of the same engineering ambition. Researchers analyzing Marco's writings note something revealing. His descriptions of Hangzhou contain more detail than any other location, the most personal observations. After witnessing empires and crossing mountains and surviving deserts, this city touched something different in him. Perhaps because here, at the edge of China, looking at water and willows, Marco finally saw home reflected back at him. Marco Polo returned to Venice in 1295. 24 years after departing, a teenager who left became a man who'd witnessed empires. His contemporaries didn't believe him. The cities seemed too grand, the distances too vast, the cultural sophistication too advanced. They called his accounts fantasy. But every location he described exists: the Persian gardens, the mountain passes, the desert oases, the cities built on scales Europe wouldn't match for centuries. Archaeologists and historians have traced his route with remarkable accuracy. The places exist, The distances match. The descriptions once dismissed as exaggeration proved to be careful observation. Marco's journey proved something. The medieval world resisted, believing that civilization wasn't a single story, that magnificence existed in multiple forms, that the world was far larger, far more connected, and far more sophisticated than anyone imagined. One teenager's curiosity opened a route that would reshape global history. Trade would follow his path. Ideas would flow along his roads, east and west, discovering they were never truly separate. From canal to lake, from west to east, from the known world to the discovered one, the journey that proved the Earth was both larger and smaller than anyone dreamed.